What's going on, people? How's everybody doing out there this evening? It's your man JB with you once again. It's a Mind Your Business Monday. And first and foremost, I just want to say thank you guys for hanging out, tuning in, and seeing what we're doing tonight. I will say this. I am honored to have our guest on this evening. I told her. I already told her. I have listened to her show. She has a show that comes on one of my favorite stations, public radio. I love it. But she has a show, and I've listened to her for a while, and I've enjoyed the show. She has really great topics, really, really great topics. And so I was honored when I sent the invitation. Well, I was honored when she accepted. I wasn't honored when I sent it, but when she accepted it, I was honored. And so I'm really, I'm, they call it fanboying and all of that stuff. And I would say that. So I'm trying to gain my composure here. And it's been an interesting evening with my wife and I here at our home. But anyway, let's do this. We're gonna bring her on. Yeah, we're gonna bring her on. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great, JB. How you doing?
I am doing well. I'm trying not to smile too hard.
That's
Um,
okay. You can smile.
yeah,
I'm
it's
smiling.
okay. All right.
Smiling is a good thing.
Yes. Well.
Because you know what? We're alive and we're working this thing, and
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
what's important.
We are. Yeah. You are correct. First and foremost, and I said this to you off air. I just want to thank you for uh, taking the time out to hang out with us this evening.
Oh, well, I appreciate being invited to hang
Hey,
out.
look.
When you sent me that invitation, I was like, okay, I need to check this out. I need to find out what's going on. So I
Mm,
go to YouTube and checked out a couple of the shows and so forth. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to be on this show.
wow.
Absolutely.
Well,
So I
thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you very, very much.
And to hear that you listen to Another
Oh,
View
listen.
every Thursday, that's just mind-boggling because, as we were talking a little bit before the show started, we average about 16,000 listeners every Thursday,
Hmm.
which I'm pretty proud of.
Yeah.
But I don't know most of the time who they are.
Right.
And so when I get a chance to meet people, and particularly when I get a chance to meet African Americans who
Hmm.
listen, and particularly when I get a chance to meet an African American male
Okay.
who
Yeah.
is listening,
Mm.
that's the icing on the cake.
Well, listen.
Seriously, because the topics we talk about, it's all about you, and it's all about the community.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, because it was public radio, and which is an area where a lot of Black people
Hmm.
don't tune in, trying to get the audience for which the show was designed to
Right.
actually
Wow.
tune in
Hmm.
was a challenge. But we're getting better.
Well, and you've all right. So with that, let's just jump in. How did you end up doing what you? How did you do end up doing Another View? And how did you end up on public radio? Like, how? What was the start? How did that
What
happen?
happened?
Yeah.
So back in excuse me 2008, I was already working at WHRO as a community advisor, community engagement director there, and my entire career prior to coming to public media was in television news. So I came here in the early 90s as the news director at Channel 3 at WTKR. And at the time when I became news director in 1994, there were 20 African American news directors in the top 50 markets in the country. There
Mm.
were only 20 of us. There were 19 guys, and I was the only woman.
Wow.
And um, and so I stayed at TKR until 2001. I left shortly after 9/11,
Mm.
actually. And I did a couple years where I just got exhausted and I
Mm.
just wanted to do some community stuff and give back. And then the police chief at the time was a guy named Melvin High of the city of Norfolk, police chief. And he became police chief in Prince George's County, Maryland, which is where I'm from. I'm from Baltimore.
Oh, PG County.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so
Okay.
I went to PG County to work with him to mend media relations, mainly between the police department and the Washington Post
Mm.
and some of the other press around the DC area. And I stayed there for 3 years, and I got a call from WHRO saying, "You want to come back and work for us?" And I was sitting in traffic on 495,
Mm.
like on a Thursday afternoon, and I was
Oh.
like, "When? How soon? How soon can I get there?" So anyway, to make a very long story short, we got a new president and CEO,
Mm.
and he looked at our air, both radio and TV, because we have Channel 15,
Mm.
and he said we don't have anything on our television station that directly affects the Black community,
Mm.
and the Black community having such a prevalence in this area. I need you to go create something. So I was like, that's right up my alley because producing TV has
Mm.
been my career. And so we invited 100 African Americans from all walks of life and all throughout Hampton Roads, from Williamsburg all the way through to northeastern North Carolina. And 60 people showed up for a 2 hour lunch. And we started talking about what kind of show would they like to see, what was important to them. And people came up with everything from the amazing race of Hampton Roads, you know,
Oh my gosh.
to cooking shows, to talking. And
Uh,
then I said, okay, let's get real here. Here's how much
right,
money we have to spend.
right, right.
And then so they said, fine, a talk show is fine, but the only thing we ask you to do is to promise us that every week you will do something positive that's
Mm,
happening in the Black community. And we have kept that promise the entire total of 13 years that we've been on the air.
mm.
Now, we went on TV first,
Okay.
and we were on television from February of 2009 until June of 2011. We lost some state funding, and they stopped doing TV production for a while. At the same time, Kathy Lewis, who was with the Hearsay with Kathy Lewis, had decided she wanted to go to 4 days a week. So I said, why not put another view on the radio?
Mm,
And they were like, no way. Nobody wants to hear, radio is different from the TV audience. We don't have a lot of Black people listening to radio. They don't want to hear what you have to say. And I said, look, I'm already on staff. You can either go out and buy a show and pay the money, or you can try it out.
mm.
What do you have to lose? Okay, we'll give it a shot. Well, that was 11 years ago.
Wow.
And we are still on the air. We started out on Fridays at
Hmm.
noon. And then a year ago, I guess we've been on for almost 2 years now, where we moved to Thursdays
Hmm.
because they wanted to keep all the talk shows back to back.
Hmm.
And then Dr. Alan Campbell has the Friday slot. Well, and since then, Kathy has left. And so they're working on some other programming that they're going to be putting in. But Another View will stay, and it's
Yes.
growing stronger every
Yes.
day, which is wonderful. Every week, more and more people are tuning in, and we are able actually to reach our core audience,
Hmm.
as I say, because as you hear in the intro, it's discussing today's issues from an
Right.
African American perspective. So while we are inclusive with everyone, we really want Black people to listen and to
Right.
participate and to
Yes.
talk about what's happening in the community and
Hmm.
what's going on and what are their thoughts. And it's a beautiful thing because we can talk about everything
Yeah.
because guess what? We're a part of this whole society
Right.
and we're a part of everything that's happening in the society. And so to be able to get the word out and to talk about those issues is very, very special.
So, with you being on, I think you said for around 11 years,
Yeah.
I think, um, what has it, so when you first started, what was
Mhm.
it like then in comparison to how it is now? Just even with as far as community reaction. So, like maybe your first couple of shows, like if you had call-ins, what were those calls like?
First couple of shows, people were very hesitant, and it was you could tell we had a predominantly white audience,
Hmm.
and because they would always start out by saying, "I'm a white guy, but," or "I'm a white person, but,"
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
and I would always chuckle and say, "You know what? It's okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's okay. We want to hear your perspectives
Hmm.
too." People were probably a little nervous. I know my bosses were probably a little nervous
Hmm.
in the beginning because they just weren't quite sure. But it happened at a time where people were starting to be very, very curious about what was going on, particularly in the Black community, what was happening to Black folks in this country. And then when Tamar Martin happened,
Hmm.
that's when we started our series called Race. Let's Talk About It, because that was the beginning of the time when we recognized that the people in Hampton Roads really wanted to talk about race,
Right.
and they
Yeah.
wanted to talk about what was going on between the races, all of them, but particularly between African Americans and whites,
Hmm.
because that's the majority in this area. So, and now the calls are more engaging. We do recognize that in this era of division, we have some people who troll us,
Right.
who will say, we do a screening when you call in to the show. The phone producer will ask you what's kind of the
Hmm.
nature of your call, so that we can fit the right calls in with the conversation, so it
Right.
doesn't take the conversation in 20 different directions.
Hmm.
And invariably those trolls will tell us one thing, and then they'll get on the
Get on
air
there.
and
Right.
talk about something else,
Right.
And as long as they're polite, and are making sense, I will let them continue. But if they start down a path that is denigrating to someone,
Hmm.
or is not in the spirit of the show that we're doing, then I very politely end their phone call. My girlfriends call me nice nasty.
Oh man, yeah, yeah. I'm sure. And I've caught. I can run down some shows that I've caught. I know I caught the when the conversations about the Latin and the Latinx, then Latina. I caught that show. I even caught a show, and this was during. You even had conversations about COVID and some of the restaurants and how they were surviving. I caught a show even during, and this was during the height of um,
George
the
Floyd.
presidency and Trump,
Ah.
and so I've caught a couple of those shows. So I try to catch as much as I can. Um, but even when it comes to the topics that you choose, or how do you decide on what topic, what's going to work, um, and then how to present it to the audience itself?
So my producer, her name is Lisa Godley, and she and I both come from a television news background.
Hmm.
We're both very involved in the community, and so a lot of times we are constantly listening. I mean, I'm out and about and talking to people and just trying to figure out what are they talking about, what's important, what's making the headlines, what's got my little circle all up in arms as we're playing cards or as we're, hanging out. What are those kind of topics? Because I figure if people are talking about that, then they're going to be willing to listen to
Right.
some experts talk about it too. One of the shows or a show that we've done twice that I'm really, really proud of, we did called On Being a Black Man in America. And we
Mm.
actually both times expanded that show to 2 hours.
Wow.
And so we went from noon to 2 o'clock because and one was right after George Floyd, and then we did the second one a year, uh, almost a year later,
Okay.
uh, just to try to check in, find out what was going on with Black men, what they were thinking about, what was happening in terms of treatment from the police
Mm.
and all
Yeah.
of that, and so we try to just stay on top of what's happening in current events. We get pitches
Hmm.
from authors, and I can tell that the show is becoming more popular because at one point I used to have to go after the book. Now the books are coming, which is pretty cool.
Right. Right.
So, but we get pitches from authors. We get pitches from people in the community that have certain things going on that they want to get out to the community. I get a lot of requests for community events.
Hmm.
We're having a vaccination clinic.
Right.
We're
Right.
having, a food drive or whatever. So I try to announce one or two of those things at the top of the show
Hmm.
to try to give people some press where they might not normally get that
Hmm.
opportunity to get the word out. But what's important to us is, can the topic carry an hour?
Oh, right.
Um, and if it can't carry an hour, can it carry at least 45 minutes? Because then we always have our positive piece,
Hmm.
which we've kept, even though we moved to radio. Lisa still goes out in the community and does those pieces. And they usually run about 4 to 5 minutes
Hmm.
themselves. So we look at, how are people talking about it? Can we carry it for an hour? Can we find the right guest
Yeah.
to be able to talk about it
Right.
and to be stimulating enough that people will want to call in and ask
Hmm.
questions, and so forth, and that's how we do it. We try not to book too far in advance because we want to be relevant to what's happening right now,
Right.
but at the same time we can't wait until the day
Last minute.
before.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know how that is, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So we try to plan it out. Do have our two regulars. We have our round table, and then where we talk about politics and
Hmm.
whatever's going on in that arena. And then we have Dr. Keith Newby is back with us again
Okay.
after this whole COVID thing was going on, because our community in particular has such a struggle with health, and
Yeah.
and it impacts our lifestyle. It impacts, how we interact with each other,
Hmm.
the mental health piece, all of that. And so we feel that that's pretty important. And so we really devote a lot of time to that topic too.
So by being on a station, we'll say public radio,
Hmm.
and having a show that is for that community, and then if the listenership is not necessarily, so you have a show that's focused on a certain community, and then say their listenership is not what it should be. What kind of pushback have you had, if any, and then how do you kind of handle that?
Well, actually, the majority community that listens to Another View constantly sends me notes and messages and saying thank you.
Yes.
They say you allow us to listen in on a conversation that we normally would not be privy to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Some people have called in tears saying, "I get it now,"
Mm.
which to me is huge.
Right. Right.
Now I don't know what they're doing in their personal life and so forth, but whatever at that moment, something has touched them,
Hmm.
that they say, I get it, I understand. I've gotten some people who are very, very, very against us being on the air.
Mm.
Um, people tell me I'm dividing the races because I talk about issues that affect the Black community.
Right.
If you just stop talking about race, it'll all go away.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay. Right. Okay. And so, I listen to them, I respond. I had one gentleman accuse me of embellishing the facts.
Oh wow.
It's not really, so then I go back and because I'm a stickler for finding out the right stats,
Hmm.
making sure that I back up
Right.
what someone is saying. It's funny. One of the scariest things, if you will, about being a talk show host for me is making sure that I am listening to what my guest is saying,
Hmm.
because I don't want them to say something that is totally wrong and I don't address it
Right.
you
Right.
know
Yeah.
and as you know, putting together a show, you're not only doing the interview,
Hmm.
but you're doing 50 million other things.
Yes.
Because I'm talking to my guests, but I'm also looking at my producer. We're communicating via instant message over, what caller is coming up, what do they have to say, what's going on with that, should we continue this, should we switch topics, should we, and
Hmm.
so there's all that stuff going on in addition to listening to the guest and trying to make sure that that what they're saying I can respond to. I do a list of questions when I before I go on the air,
Hmm.
but I never use them
Oh.
unless the conversation is so deadly
Right. Right. Yeah.
or we have run out of things to say. So I use it as a backup. But for me, just like on your show, just like we're doing now, I want to have a conversation
Right.
with
Yes.
people. I
Yeah.
don't want Q&A.
Right.
And so that's really, really important that we just get into a conversation. And once we do that, it may take off and go
Hmm.
in many different directions, and that's okay. I try to read up as much as I can, study as much as I can to know what that person's about and who
Hmm.
they are and so forth. But I just let the conversation flow.
If you weren't doing Another View,
Uh-huh.
what else would you be doing?
My business, Sharing Info LLC,
Hmm.
which is a communications consulting business. Once George Floyd happened in in earnest, my diversity, equity, and inclusion facilitation work that I do took off like crazy.
Hmm.
And I'm a one person show, if you will, with Sharing Info, and I facilitate conversations. I MC events. I facilitate meetings. For various organizations. And it's funny, I never imagined myself as an entrepreneur.
Mm.
I was strictly, I got to know every 2 weeks my paycheck is
When that
coming,
check is coming. Right. Right. Yes.
you know. And I turned 60 years old on June 29th of 2017. And June 30th of 2017, I was no longer a full-time employee at WHRO. I thought I was going to retire from the public media station. They had other ideas. So they said, we can't afford to keep you on full time, but we still want you to do the show. So technically, or in actuality, they became my first client for sharing info. I had started the company previously because my tax guy said, you're doing all these speaking engagements and you got, a little bit of income coming
Mm-hmm.
in here and there. And so, start an LLC. That way you can run, the dollars through that and you won't get hit so badly in terms of taxes. And so in 2013, I set up the company, but I wasn't serious about it,
Mm-hmm.
other than if somebody asked me to do a speaking engagement and I would tell them, write the check to sharing info instead of the Barbara Hamm Lee.
Mm-hmm.
So, but come 2017, I said, well, I don't know many people are going to turn around and hire a 60-year-old woman at this point in media. So
Right.
what am I going
Right.
to do?
Right.
And so I just decided to get out there and throw my hat in the ring of entrepreneurship, and God has blessed me and the company, and so far so good.
And
Yeah.
what has that process been like for you? Like,
Whew.
you mentioned the fact you mentioned your age.
Yeah.
You mentioned the fact that, hey, I've always been that person. I'm looking for that check to hit every 2 weeks, regardless. It's because with the entrepreneurship, you can work your butt off, but it doesn't
Right.
always mean that you're going to see uh,
A paycheck.
a paycheck.
And especially in a timely manner,
Right.
because when the mortgage got to be paid, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
It has been scary at times. Here's where my faith comes in, because for me that's what's most important. And I just had to, when I stepped out there, I prayed about it. I asked God to guide my company and make things happen the way they're supposed to happen, and I tried to put in place the things that I would need to put in place to make it happen. And so, networking. I started calling everybody that had said, "Oh, if you ever need anything, give me a call." Letting people know, marketing myself, being out there. It did help that I was already on the air. So when I picked up the phone and called someone, it wasn't like immediate rejection,
Mm-hmm.
because they knew who I was. And I recognize that's a advantage
Mm-hmm.
that I had that a lot of entrepreneurs may not have, because they may not be known, and so that helped quite a bit. Making sure that I had the tax person that I trusted, making sure that I had a mentor, and I have a couple of mentors in business,
Mm-hmm.
not journalism, not
Mm-hmm.
speaking, but business mentors who have given me some real solid, sound advice on what needs to happen. And a couple of times things got a little hairy, but so far and I had to have a change of attitude also, quite honestly, because I went into it thinking, okay, if I just make enough money to make sure I can cover the bills,
Mm-hmm.
I'm good. And I really hadn't thought of it in a entrepreneurial sense
Mm-hmm.
of really growing the business.
Right.
And my husband, who is an entrepreneur, and he was very instrumental in helping me to go overcome that hurdle
Mm-hmm.
of just looking at it as something to pay the bills, but looking
Right.
at it as an actual business that I own, and growing it and making it expand. So, and I'm still working on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's been 4 years, and we're doing okay. And I want to grow it more.
Right. And that was the next question because, when you know, for whatever reason, you go and you jump into this entrepreneurial stage, space, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
and you have a partner, you have a spouse, and maybe they are, maybe they aren't in agreement.
Right.
And if you have that, so if one, you're having the battle of trying to start your own business, and then two, you've got to fight your spouse every day as well. It's got to be tough. But when you had the conversation with your husband. How did that conversation? What did that conversation look like?
Maxie was so incredibly supportive. And as a matter of fact, he was the one who would say to me prior to while I was still working full time
Hmm.
and I was doing all these speaking engagements and stuff on the side, a lot of that stuff I was doing for free.
Mm.
And he was like, "Excuse me?"
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, "But honey, I can't. Excuse me. This
Right.
is your expertise. You
Hmm.
are giving away your expertise.
Right.
You know, there is a market for what you are doing. Why are you giving it away?" And so I won't say the amount, but I remember the first time that I ever asked for what I thought was an astronomical amount of money
Hmm.
to do to work with a particular client, and he and I talked about it, and we went back and forth, and I said, "Well, what about this? Maybe I'll just lower it to this." And he's
Hmm.
like, "No, stick to your guns,
Hmm.
be secure in what you do. You know you're good at what you do. You deserve to be paid."
Right.
For what you're doing. And I went in and I asked for it. And you know what? They said yes so fast, and I was mad at myself because I probably could have gotten more.
uh, um,
but but at the same time, I was proud that I actually, because I
right.
like I said, I was Miss. Give me my paycheck every 2 weeks. I'm
Hmm.
good.
Hmm.
And so this was all new for me.
And I guess it's a thing. It's a thing to where if a lot of times we don't see our own value.
Exactly.
A lot of people may
Exactly.
see our value, but a lot of times we don't see it ourselves, which
Yep.
can work out two ways. That can be a good thing because it can keep you humble,
Yeah.
but then at the same time, it can be a bad thing because then you don't value the information that you may have and the skill set and what you may be able to provide someone or
That's
some
right.
other entity. And
Mhm.
so if they see that and they're reaching out to you to the point to where they want you to be a part of whatever it is that they're doing, that alone says a lot. And then you've just got to have it in as my dad would say, in your knower that hey, I can do
Yeah.
this. They're willing to pay me to come and whatever it is to have this conversation, to facilitate, blah blah blah, whatever. And now I've just got to know within myself that I can do this, and this is what I'm called to do, and I'm gonna go ahead and knock it out.
Right. Exactly. And I mean that really is what it comes down to, because I think that a lot of times entrepreneurs have really good ideas,
Hmm.
but they become afraid to promote
Right.
that idea.
Hmm.
They become afraid to say, "You know what? I'm the expert at this."
Hmm.
I've had people say to me in the past, it's, you know, emceeing a program, that's no big deal. Okay, well then why are you calling me? I mean, honestly, if you can do it yourself,
Right.
then why aren't you doing it yourself? You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously, there is a skill set
Hmm.
to moving a program along. And people tell me all the time, "Oh my gosh, you actually got us in, you got us started, you kept the audience engaged, and you got us out on time." You know, how many times have you been to a rubber chicken dinner and it's gone on
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
on
Yes.
and on
Yes.
because no one has control. So it really does come down to, you have to believe in yourself,
Hmm.
and you have to have faith in God. Whoever your God is,
Hmm.
but you have to have faith that He is watching you and protecting you and wants to see you succeed, and is there for you. I don't think that anybody can be in this business in what we do and totally do it on their own.
Hmm. Right. Yeah.
Because it takes a lot. It takes a lot to do it.
And for
Yeah.
those of you that are just tuning in, I said I'm honored. I'm sitting here having a conversation with Miss Barbara Hamm Lee, and I'm gonna tell you guys right now, really, we're having a conversation, and you guys are just tuning in. I'm just gonna be honest with
Exactly.
you. We're sitting here, we're talking, and now you guys have the I'm allowing you guys just to come and hang out and listen to this conversation because that's what it is.
Hey, everybody out there.
I mean, that's really what it is. But and like I said before, and I enjoy the show. I enjoy what it is that she does and what she's doing for the community. Um, she has a show that is really allowing us to have a voice. It's
Yeah.
giving us a voice, and not only is it giving us a voice, but it's almost she's sending an invitation out to the and she's inviting people to the cookout that may not be able to come because they don't normally get an invitation.
Yeah.
And so they're able to come and learn about us as a community, as a culture. Uh, because for some of them, they may not have, well, I've got black
Exactly.
friends. Well, everybody doesn't have black friends.
That's
And
right.
so to have the opportunity to learn about another culture, but it's a positive,
Yeah.
it's a positive thing because a lot of times other cultures may learn about us, unfortunately, from media, the other
Well,
media,
yes.
rap videos. Uh,
Part of why Lisa and I were so excited about doing another view, honestly, was that we were sick of seeing, and we're both from TV news,
mm,
okay?
mm,
We were tired of doing stories of black men in handcuffs.
yeah,
We were tired of the suspect is 6'2",
right,
185
yeah.
pounds, African American. Okay, you described 50 million
That's
men, but
all of us.
okay,
That's yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
exactly. But we were tired of that because we knew there was so much more to
right.
our community, and that we were expert. That's the other thing we do in another view too, because when you think about it, when you look at experts throughout media, rarely or not as often as you should do you see African American experts. You
Yeah,
know, doctors, lawyers,
right. Yeah.
um, other entrepreneurs,
Hmm.
mental health professionals, whatever, And so we also offer them an opportunity to share their expertise and to
Hmm.
show that we're not a monolith.
Right.
People say to me, "What does the black community think?" I don't know. This is what this person thinks. But we're not a monolith. We have
Right.
all kinds of thoughts from the beginning to end. We don't all march lockstep politically.
Hmm.
We don't march lockstep socially.
Right.
We are just as varied as any other community. And people who only see one aspect
Yeah.
of the community, and they're very shortchanged.
Hmm.
And we just felt it was just so important for people to see the Black community as a vibrant whole community,
Hmm.
and that's what our goal is. Can I tell people where they can listen? By the
Please,
way, if
please.
they so it's every Thursday at noon on if you're in the Hampton Roads area. Or Eastern Virginia, it's 89.5
Hmm.
WHRV FM, or if you're out of the area, you can stream it live at anotherviewradio.org. And so 12 o'clock noon every Thursday.
And
There we are.
I'm going to make sure that I'll put the link on my page as well
Thank you.
because
Thank you.
and um, like I said, I enjoy it. I enjoy the conversations, but I think it's something that um, everybody needs to just kind of hear. Um, you know, hear some of the stories and hear from some of the guests. Like
Yeah.
you have guests on that are successful, but they're successful, but then they also are concerned about the community. They're doing things in the community. Some of the conversations that you have are those that you had a conversation I think a while back even about the casino.
Yeah.
The
Mhm,
casino that's being built, and
mhm.
because some of the politicians were pushing for the casino because it was going to help us, and then you had others that were saying, no, listen, it's not helping us at all.
Right.
So
Exactly.
so
Because we're
these
going
are
to get the short end of the stick.
right,
Or this
yes,
was, yeah.
yeah, and so you have these conversations, and I think that not only does it shed light on maybe some subjects that a lot of us probably have no clue about.
True. Yeah.
Uh,
And that's the other piece that I also want to try to help the community to become engaged. And pardon me, you guys, my allergies are like off the chain.
Go ahead.
So if I'm sounding nasally, I apologize. But making sure that our community understands what when something is coming to the community or is happening in the community, that they really are understanding all the what's around it.
Hmm.
What's the reasoning for it, and what's behind it, and so to have that opportunity, and it's interesting because some of the work that I'm doing through sharing info, I have to then be very careful because as a journalist, for conflict of interest reasons, I can't talk about on Another View.
As bad
And
as you may
some of
want
those,
to.
exactly. And some of those, I really want to talk about on Another View.
Right.
So what I have discovered is that there are a couple of other media outlets that I can say, you need to take a look at this.
Mm,
Now, whether they decide to or not, that's totally up to them. But I know how I would handle it if I could.
right.
And people, I get a lot of calls, especially from politicians,
Yeah.
who want to be on,
Right.
the air and so forth. But I tend to stay away from the political stuff, mainly because, you got to do the fair rule, and
Hmm.
and the other reason too was when Kathy was on, Hearsay had been doing politics and having uh, uh, everybody who was on the ballot to come on and have their
Hmm.
15 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever. And she had been doing that for so long. And so we just decided, we'll let Hearsay handle it because a lot of the same audience is
Right.
spillover audience.
Right. Right.
So we would just sit back
What
on
would you
that.
say? What do you think your biggest accomplishment has been? Um, yeah. What would you say your biggest accomplishment has been?
You mean in life or the show?
I'm gonna say in life.
Wow. Okay, I have two biggest
Okay.
accomplishments. My daughter,
Mm,
and because I was a single mother for 26 years.
mm.
And I was a very late bride. I didn't get married until I turned 50. That's my
Oh
other biggest
wow.
accomplishment. Yes, I was
Wow.
50 years old when I got married, finally. So I raised my daughter, as a media professional running around. I've worked in Baltimore, Washington, Philadelphia, Norfolk, you know,
Sheesh.
and handling all of that. And wow. So those two, I think, are I look at as with solid pride, and as an achievement that was important to me, and that I've been able to find the right person to marry,
Mm.
and to raise my daughter in the right way. So
Well, listen.
professionally, I know, and all my girlfriends and everybody. I mean, I went through the whole thing of I'm not going to weddings anymore.
Right. Right.
All my
Right.
friends are married. I mean, it was rough. It
Mm.
was very, very rough. And they kept saying, Barbara, it will happen when it's supposed to happen. And you know what? That's exactly the way it is. And I'm glad I
Wow.
waited.
Shout outs to Maxie.
Absolutely. Shout out to Maxie. But professionally, wow. I mean, I have had so many experiences. JB, I don't know if you know, when I first started in TV, I worked at the number one station in Baltimore, WJZ
Mm.
TV, and back then we had a talk show called People Are Talking, and the hosts were Oprah Winfrey
Oh
and Richard
wow.
Scher.
Wow.
So I was Oprah's producer way back before she became Oprah.
Oprah. Right. Okay.
And so I've met so many people through my journey. I've been able to interact and run news departments in Washington D.C. and in
Mm.
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I've had a really wonderful career, and then when I'm thinking, okay, it's coast time,
Hmm.
then all of a sudden up pops this newest adventure, and that's the thing about life. I think you have to be open to adventure. It's
Yes.
scary.
Yeah.
It's sometimes you just go, whoa, I don't know
Right.
what this is about,
Right.
and how I'm supposed to deal with it, but everything that you have done, you use those skills to take you through the next level. And I'm enjoying it. I had an opportunity recently to go back to a full time position, and I really gave it a lot of thought. And I said, nope. I'm
Good.
having a good time. I'm liking this entrepreneur thing. I
Oh
like setting
wow.
my schedule.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like the autonomy of it. And you learn. You want to talk about learning how to budget? You learn
Yes.
how to budget.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You learn how to do certain things, and you have to learn how to say no
Mhm.
to yourself, and you also have to learn how to say no to certain opportunities because every opportunity that comes your way as an entrepreneur is not the right
Right.
opportunity for
And
you.
and it's funny because we just had this conversation. So it was myself, uh,
Uh-huh.
my wife's cousin. She's my cousin, and her boyfriend, who's also my cousin. Um, and we just had this conversation about you know you'll get opportunities all the time.
Right.
And I had a guest on the show not too long ago, and he said, as an entrepreneur, one thing that you got to realize and understand is at some point you have to learn how to say no.
Yep. That's
He said
true.
you have to. He said you
That's
can't say
true.
yes to everything that shows up, and
Yep.
every opportunity that comes along. You just can't do it. And when you learn how to say no, sometimes, then
Hmm.
you'll find out one how empowering that is, but then two how much it's going to help you further along the way when it comes to the even the whole entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Because, first of all, if you say yes to everything, you're gonna burn yourself out.
Yes.
And you're not gonna have any time. What's the point of owning your own if you can't enjoy some of it sometime?
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, come on.
Yeah.
But you will burn yourself out. Sometimes you find yourself in situations, you could find yourself in a situation that is not healthy for what you're trying to
Yes.
achieve and what your business is about. And you have to look out for your business reputation.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, my business is me.
Yeah.
I'm the brand. Okay. And so I have to look out for my brand and I have to be very, very cautious and particular. I vet things that are
Hmm.
coming along
Hmm.
to make sure that it's legit,
Right.
that it's going to give me the type of return that I need
Hmm.
in order to make sure that my business and my name stays intact.
Right.
And, that's a lot of things that you have to think about as you go along. I know you can look at it as because you had a guest on recently that I saw, and he was talking about passion and
Hmm.
how if you kind of start out, I guess, working for money, but
Hmm.
then if it doesn't
Right.
become a passion,
Hmm.
you really can't achieve and get to that level
Yes.
where you want to be. And I really I agree with that wholeheartedly. You just everything's not for you.
Right.
It just isn't.
Yeah.
Everything is not for you.
Yeah.
And if you pull yourself too thin, and you got people all around you that may not have your best interests at heart,
Mm.
then then you find yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
And so you got to be very, very careful with that.
You mentioned earlier about mentors. Uh,
Uh-huh.
how important are mentors, and then how do you pick? Like for you, how did you know? You know what and especially and just
Sure.
because at some point you may feel like I'm too old for a mentor. Just and this is me
Okay.
talking.
Yeah.
I've had this conversation, and I'm talking to my wife the other day. I'm like, babe, and so look, I'm about to be 50, and
Mhm.
and there's certain things that I'm looking for, and so you said something, and you were talking about at the age that you were and trying to looking at jobs and stuff like that. Because even I was telling my wife the other day, I was like, I was looking at jobs, and I was like, babe, am I too old? Am I
Yeah.
for some of
There's
these jobs?
ageism is real.
Mm,
Discrimination on ageism is real,
yeah,
folks.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it is. Because, well, a couple of dynamics. One, you got to think about how are you going to react when you're coming into the workplace and your boss
Mm,
is 30 years younger than you are.
mm, right. Yeah.
You
That's
know,
tough. Yeah.
that's a consideration. Some people can deal with that, some people can't. In terms of, are you too old for a mentor? Never.
Mm,
I don't think you're ever too old for a mentor, because sharing each other's experiences, and if somebody has done something that you're trying to strive
hmm
towards, or that you're going towards that direction, then that advice from them is invaluable. And I think you take the advice differently as an older entrepreneur
hmm
than you may
Yeah.
as a younger
Right.
entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you know, you recognize, I recognize, I'll speak for myself. I won't speak for everybody who's in the fabulous 60s, that but there are certain things that, okay, let's say technology for an example. Now I think I'm doing okay, but I know I still have a lot to
hmm
learn about technology and how to really utilize it to make things happen, and think more when I'm sitting in a meeting about how, the younger folks go immediately to social media,
hmm
where I still, my first thoughts may be to go towards more traditional media. Okay, so how do I combine those two to make it work? And so that becomes a challenge. The mentor that I found, I had known, and I watched her grow her business,
mm
uh, and um, and I admired what she did.
Right.
And what she does and what I do are totally different, but just in terms of understanding how to prospect, understanding how to find opportunities, making sure that you have your books and your materials together,
mm
your marketing materials, your back end things,
hmm
your QuickBooks, and do you have an attorney? Do you have the right insurance for your business? All those kinds of. Did you get the right license? Did
mm
you go down?
Right.
Did you get registered with the state? Did you get
mm
registered with the feds? Did you? And then, are you going to decide? Are you going to be a business that goes after government contracts,
Right.
for
Yeah.
example?
Yeah.
And if you are you SWAM certified? Are you
mm
DBE certified for the federal side? If you're not, what kind of marketing are you going to do? So all of those things, and just to be able to bounce something off of someone who has experienced it, or maybe they may not have experienced that exact thing, but they've experienced
hmm
enough of life to
Yeah.
know what's going on. It's important. And so I think, in terms of finding a great mentor, you find somebody that you're compatible with, that you admire and get along with, and that you trust
Right.
is going to tell you the right thing.
Yeah.
Now, because
Yeah.
again, everybody's not for you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So make sure that it is somebody that you really can trust. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well, look, I appreciate you. I really do.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you coming on the show. I appreciate you for what you do, what you're doing with the show itself, and then even with your company,
Thank you.
and then even to the point of starting it when you started it. Because that's saying a lot.
Yeah,
You have some people that once they get a certain age, they're like, "Oh, this is it, man."
yeah, exactly.
You know.
Well, I looked at it like this. I could have fallen, and I had my moments. Don't get me
Mm,
wrong. I
mm,
mean, because you go through a variety of emotions. You're first you're like, "Oh, I'm free," and then you're like, "Oh, I'm free," and then you're like, "Okay, God, why me? Why
mm,
why is this happening?" And
mm.
then you're like, "Okay, I can do this. I can make this work."
Right.
I mean, you're going through all of this stuff, but the bottom line is, I knew I wasn't ready to stop.
Mm,
I knew I wasn't ready to stop spreading the good news about my people
mm-hmm,
and my community that I love. I knew that I wasn't ready to stop helping people with their issues in terms of race relations, and helping them to understand each other better.
mm,
And so I had to figure it out. and figure out what was the best way to do that. And so, if you have good support around you, and if you don't have that within your family, then you may have to go out and find it amongst your friends, or you may
Mhm.
have to go out and find it amongst your other associates that you know, or whatever. Family comes in different
Mhm.
forms and fashion,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
And but if it's your dream and if it's something that's really really important to you, then go for it. I mean, be smart about it.
Right.
Just don't give up everything and run out the door and say,
Oh yeah,
I'm going,
yeah,
I'm going to
yeah.
do this. But, but give yourself some goals. Give
Mm.
yourself some deadlines, if you will, to say, all right, if I really want to do this, I'm going to start doing this on the side.
Mhm.
And when I get to X point, if I'm comfortable enough, I'm going to let, the 9 to 5 go and I'm going to
Mhm.
go for it full time.
Mhm.
But just make sure that you have your ducks in a row, because there's nothing worse than getting out there and finding out that you don't have your act together and then you've
Right.
got to struggle, you know,
Yeah.
on that
Yeah.
end. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
That's
important.
and that's I think that's good. That's key. Because once again, uh, you get a lot of people that I'm gonna start my own business.
Right.
They quit their jobs and just jump out there,
Exactly.
and the business doesn't go well. They're upset. They're mad at the world. They're mad at God. They're mad at everybody and anybody.
Yep.
Um, and they didn't prepare.
Yeah.
And
And you have to prepare. I mean, you
right.
really do. I mean, I was lucky enough, even though I left HRO at the end of 2017, and I had the structure of the
Hmm.
company already done. But even still, I took that year to just really try to figure out, you know, where exactly am I going to go with this, and how am I going to make this work. And like I said, I was lucky that I had another view, that one day a week. So
Hmm.
so I had
Hmm.
something to keep me going,
Right.
but I was looking at all the other pieces that I needed to put in place. And you're right. If you jump out there like that and you're not really prepared, because you don't know how long it's going to take for the money to start rolling in,
Yeah.
you got to have
Yeah.
some backup.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to,
Got to have some backup. Yeah.
you got to be prepared, and you got to be
Yep.
prepared for either way, either it
Yep.
working or it not working.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
if you're prepared for it, then whatever happens and whatever takes place,
Yeah.
it won't hurt as bad.
Exactly. Exactly.
You
And
know.
and it gives you an opportunity to pivot, because
Yes.
because it doesn't hurt as bad.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it keeps your mind clear enough that, all right, this isn't quite working the way that I thought it was going to work. So
Mm.
let me, turn around here. Prior to George Floyd, I was doing some DEI training and so forth. But once that happened, I mean, just phone call after phone call, because companies, people, individuals, groups
Yeah.
were just so out of sorts,
Yeah.
particularly from the white community, about how do I handle this? What do I do? What do I say to my black colleague, that I'm working with during the day? How
Mm.
do I deal with this? And it was interesting. You asked me about how some of the feedback
Hmm.
that we got. If I have time for a real quick
Yeah,
story.
for sure.
So during the whole George Floyd thing, as I said, I got a lot of emails, and this one person wrote me this, I mean, long email about their family and about how their family didn't. They had a member of their family who was very racist, and how do we deal with him, and yada yada. And I had said on the air, to my listeners, I said, I've gotten all of your emails and so forth. I am asking you to give me a little time before I respond, because I am processing what has happened too. People don't understand, just because you're on the air doesn't mean you don't feel, about what's going on in society. And so I just told the audience, I need time to process. Well, I didn't respond to this woman in the time frame that she felt was appropriate. And so she wrote me back, and she let me have it. And I was so, which really just made me really double down then, because I was like, how dare you? But that was
Right.
that privilege,
Hmm.
there was that privilege that had come in there. And when I wrote her back, I just said to her, I am sorry you're going through these changes. And I gave her some books that she could read, some suggestions that she could take. I took the high road, but it just indicated to me, just again, how some people just think you're supposed to jump when they say jump,
Right. Yeah.
and self-care is critical.
Hmm.
You've got to take care of yourself too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so if they couldn't be patient enough to wait, that week or whatever it wasn't like, 10 years
Hmm.
later. It
Hmm.
was you know then so be it. So be it. But
Well, I said this before. Um, I and I almost don't. It's sounds so cliche-ish, but I do. I really do appreciate what you guys are doing.
thank you.
Once again, it puts a different light on our community, which doesn't happen that often. And I think that besides that, and then what you're doing individually,
Yeah,
um, is it's much needed. And I think right about now, we need all the help we can get.
I
We
agree.
we really 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 do. It's
Yeah.
been it's been tough.
Yeah, it's been a tough year,
Yeah.
tough couple of years.
Yeah.
It's been a tough couple of
Yes.
decades.
Yes.
But
Yes.
now it's really, really ugly.
Yeah.
I remember though when I was a little girl, I remember very distinctly being in the basement. My mom was hanging up clothes on the clothesline, and I was down there, and I was just chitter chatter,
Mm.
chitter chatter. And she said to me, Barbara, can you please just give me 5 minutes of silence? Because I just can't take it right now. And as I told her when I was receiving an award once, and I said, Mom, you didn't know I was preparing for my radio career.
Oh man. Yeah. 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 That.
So, it's a blessing. I'm a people person, so I
Yeah.
have a career that has allowed me to interact with all kinds of people.
Hmm.
I try to learn something every day, every time from folks that I am around. And I'm going to be coming back to you because we're looking to do some different things on another view, and
Okay.
so
Okay. All right.
don't expect to hear from me. Okay.
Listen. Hey, look. I'm waiting. I'm on the edge of my seat.
I'm
Uh,
glad to find you.
Listen.
This is awesome.
Whatever. And I say this. And when I say it, I'm being completely honest. I'm being as transparent as possible. That whatever it is that I can do, and that's whatever now. I told you before, I'm married. I got 5 kids. I don't have a whole lot of money right now.
Okay.
Um, so the money part, but whatever I can do,
Okay.
please email me. I will send you my number. Uh, Text me, whatever I can do. My wife, whatever we can do, we will be there. And
Thank you.
I promise you that, and I do whatever we can do.
That's fantastic. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Oh,
I
listen.
am truly honored to be a guest on your
Oh,
show.
look.
Really. I
I,
am.
I appreciate you. I thank you for taking time out your schedule.
Sure.
And I say this to a lot of our guests. Being an entrepreneur is tough, and one thing that is the most valuable to us is time.
Yeah.
It's the one thing that we can't get back. And for you to spend that time with us, as valuable as time is, I appreciate it. I thank your family for allowing you to spend time with
Thank you.
us because we're taking time away from them as well. So it's much appreciated. And as I said, anything that we can do, anything I can do, please let me know, and I will come. I'm not the fastest runner, but I will come running.
That's fantastic. Well, I appreciate that. And tell your wife, I'm glad she's there. She's supporting you.
Yes,
That
yes.
that age range thing you guys got going on with
Oh,
those
listen.
5 children.
Oh,
Woohoo!
look. I'm surprised one ain't kicked the door in right now. Because normally, listen, those guys, especially the younger ones, oh my goodness. So
But they
thank,
keep you young, right?
yes, and thank God for all older ones. So when I can't catch them, I could send one of them to go get them. But
JB, thanks so much.
thank you. Hold on for me just a minute.
Okay, we'll do.
Once again, you guys, it's the Mind Your Business podcast powered by Hanging with the Harrisons. That was Miss Barbara Hamm Lee. from another view is also, and she has her own business as well. She's so not only is she a business owner, she's also an entrepreneur and she's an influencer. Trust me when I say, if you haven't caught the show, you take the time to listen to the show. I will put the link up to where you can catch it, go online and you can see it and hear it. But once again, what she's doing for our community is amazing. What she's doing just to allow other people to hear the stories and hear about us, people of color, some of the things that we're doing outside of what maybe the mainstream media or some of the other media may report uh, is is great and it's much needed. So once again, thank you guys for hanging out with us. We do this on Mondays, so make sure you tune in, you catch it on replay. The replay will go up on Wednesday at 11 a.m. So just in case you missed it or if you want to see it again, it'll go up on our YouTube channel on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. We will repost it. And just thank you guys. I appreciate you. And I thank you very much. And once again, we do this. It's a Mind Your Business podcast. And we will talk very soon. Yeah, have a good evening.